Denise, how many people do we have today?
We are about 80%, so still maybe 2 or 3 more. Gabby from Indonesia will be coming in a little late because she's coming back from another meeting.
All right. You guys have an advantage. Your day has already long started. You're going towards the mid-afternoon, whereas in Hamburg, Germany, it is just starting. It is still dark outside. Can you believe it? Wintertime.
Right. But then you get to experience the glue wine very soon.
You're absolutely right. You know, like the most disappointing thing about German Christmas markets and all that, as pretty as they are, is they are so boring.
Yep.
There's kind of like no variety of anything, you know. It's like where you think like street food, anywhere where you guys live, you've got plenty of stuff. In Germany, it's kind of like, what is it? What do they have? Maybe 2 variety of sausages, and that's about it.
Right.
What you have is for street food, and then you've got Glühwein, maybe the red version and the white version, and then
Right.
plenty of choices for alcoholic drinks. But food is just a bloody disaster here.
Yeah.
It's like you might think like, why don't they do like spicy chicken wings? They would
Right.
like this. No, they don't do it. All of like the Thai restaurants which are participating in like the street events, what do? Sausages. They just want to sell stuff. Crazy.
Maybe we should move there.
Somehow I had a good experience in Frankfurt, maybe because of the community or the area we went into. They had good food out there, like a lot of burger choices and meats, as well as a lot of grill things over there. So overall, it was a good experience. Or it could be because I was visiting with my cousins, so they already knew which is the place to take me.
Yeah. And then like
Yeah.
depending how much glue you have,
Yep, that's also true.
you don't care about the rest anymore.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we can proceed, we have 14 of us today.
All right, fantastic. So we'll start with, I'm gonna just share this thing here. Yeah, the rules. We are getting finally to it. And you might think like rules should be simple for design, right? Because they're just words and elements and whatever graphics you're putting in there. But they're there for a reason. And this is why certain designs look better than others, is partially because they know the rules, they obey the rules, or they know how to break the rules. So, but it is normally not a random process that makes design look good. But we should start first with a brief review of what you presented last time with like the changes you made. So it would be just like the work which you amended basically or changed. And we have a few comments on it. Let's not make this a 3-hour session on all of your works, because we also have to get to the contents. So everybody will share, if you did your homework, your design changes, and then we'll have a few comments on this. Who wants to start with this? Denise, maybe you take the initiative.
Okay, sure, no problem. I'll share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So just to give some context for those who missed out last week. So last week I shared this word. Basically, it's a pitch deck used by the salespeople, our account managers. It's actually a summary of the products that they'll be selling or pitching. So last week I showed this exact slide. It's a duplicate of many's, but the content changes based on the product. So one of the feedback was there's too much text going on, and also the image is a bit decorative. So I spent some time this week. This still not the final one. However, I managed to clean up the text. I think I removed some of the not so crucial information. In terms of the image wise, I'm still deciding what's the best way to go about it. I still think there needs to be an image, but I minimize it. Still haven't really figured out what's the best way to go about it. So yeah, this is my work in progress. Any feedback?
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I know that you are bound by a certain template structure in your corporate template. So your first design was kind of, but let's put it this way, not very clear. When you look at a slide, it has a couple of objectives. Your first one would be like, what do you really want to convey, right? What is the most important thing to take back for the person who looks at the slide? Your first design was a little bit, you have a lot of text area on the top, which is kind of informative, but it's not really the crucial part which you want to convey. Then you had like a bigger image, which was kind of like a guy standing a little bit bored, listening to somebody on the right-hand side. Now you change it, you went creative on this, but since you don't really know the rules yet, it looks a little bit unbalanced, right? So you've got white spaces, which are good. In this case, they are in the most important part of the slide, right? If you're reading left to right in this culture, then you have the tendency to wander towards the bottom right side of the real estate of your screen, right? And that is empty. So there is actually where your take back info of the slide should be. In traditional advertising, the space at the lower right side was the most expensive one, because this is the one where like the eye of like the beholder was always ending. So this one here, you have to rethink about your balance. And then you have got leading lines, like this diagonal. It carries that eye to the bottom right. So it just carries them into an empty space, and everything falls over to the left for your content. So that is something what you have to consider. But more on like the rules later on, then you might understand how balance and flow and rhythm works on like any kind of design you're doing. Might be print or digital or graphic. So here you are using two rules wrongly. One is like that diagonal, it guides the view to an empty area. And then you use white space in an area where you should have contents. So that is your issue with the balance here. But I think it's a smart move to use like this tangent you have on your triangle as this part of your kind of aesthetics for your chevron. So it is interesting. However, in this case, it doesn't really work, right? More on like the rules a little bit later. Thank you, Denise.
Thanks, F. Can I suggest the next person?
Sure, go ahead.
Ori?
All right. Okay, F. I made some changes to my slide. Share it. So I'm keeping the before so we all can see what I made. So this was the original F. You said
Yeah.
all over the place, right? Put them all together. So this is what I did, basically. So top 5 lifestyle diseases with the numbers all together. I couldn't come up with anything else for this in order to put them all together and then to show it logically for people. So
Yeah. Okay, I think like your key problem areas which you're addressing here, I think they come across much better, right? Areas where like you still have to work on is that the entire balance, you've got like basically you're dealing with 2 elements, right? Your problem solution.
yeah,
And I think this is blocked correctly. However, when you come to your layout of your titles and boxing, it still needs some work there. So it becomes a little bit more balanced. Right now, you've got a lot of things which are very prominent. Your title is very prominent, then your subtitles are very prominent, then you're using prominent colors. So everything is fighting for attention here. And that is an issue which you have to solve. Normally it is when it comes to also on Denise's slide, what is the most important part here? What you want to talk about? That has to be visible. That's the first thing, but the person looks at and sort of like and understands it. If the person understands it within 2 seconds, then you did a good design on it. You addressed like the issue and communicate this correctly to the person so he gets it. So the slide serves a function of communication. If you have too many elements competing, then it is confusing, right? So we have to deal with balance here. So I have like problems, opportunities. That is important for them to understand. This is a pro and con here, a problem solution option. But aesthetically, they have to be balanced better. And the boxing part, it might not be relevant to box it because you already have bullet points, which gives the text block some kind of structure. And there might be just like something you want to take away, right? In most of the designs, because we have to add so much information and we think this is relevant and important, then we have to juggle around to balance this. You have to rethink it and sort of like, what is the 30% you can chalk it away to make it clearer, simpler for them to understand it. And that is a hard surgery which you have to do for clarity, right? Yes, you might think, yes, but I need the info. But saying like, for example, you don't need the box. Do you need the big bars on like your problem opportunities? Can we solve this differently, a little bit more elegantly? And it still blocks this the contents into left and right. So we have to address those issues. And right now, it still looks too messy. So we have to find clarity in here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Um, for this, you told me it was too cute,
Mm-hmm.
so I tried to make it more serious, but it seems to be like hard to read now.
Yeah. Yeah, because like your line gap is too little. Sort of like and you want to stick with a certain font size. And if you're having more than, yeah, we've got like 3 colors here, plus a background color, so it becomes a little bit heavy. Then you've got your text, which is a little bit hard to read. This is a kind of like a very stylized thin font. If you track them too small, and if the line gaps is too small, then it becomes like it becomes too dense, the information, and this makes it look too complex. Unfortunately, Microsoft is a terrible company for any kind of good design work. They were never really good at it. PowerPoint, I don't know why it became so popular, beside being an office tool, but it is one of like the worst choices when you want to make things look good straight out of the box. But about different tools and different softwares, we can talk about this later. Unfortunately, most of like you guys are stuck with PowerPoint, and they are just not very good at like giving you presentable results out of the box. The base templates are just not very pleasing. So here it is the font size, which is a little bit too big. So it makes it cluttered. I would reduce the font size and use a wider spacing between the lines.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think like it looks much better.
Okay. It's just, in my opinion, somehow
Mhm.
this is easier to read, right? It's cleaner. Yeah.
Yes.
But like you said, it's too cute. It doesn't show the seriousness. So,
Yeah. You know, like the advantage you had with your previous design is that like it was dark text on white background, and that makes it always easier to read. It's like why most of the books are printed on black on white on newspapers. They could easily reverse this. But whenever we have like two colors working together, there needs to have enough contrast for it to have an ease to read. Also on your second slide, you still can use the real estate below the screen. So you can extend your boxes, use spacing there, and like to have more space between your DOC letters, your title, your subtitles, and then your main text. Right? That is sometimes it helps if you just use different text blocks and you can space them individually, move the text blocks apart from each other instead of having to go into your type control and do your spacings between the lines of everything else. So the letters is one text block, then you've got your title is one text block. So you can use them to your advantage by moving them separately. Yeah.
okay. Understood.
Okay.
I'm currently working on this one. So this was the original. And then I'm not too happy with this. And then I'm trying to separate them into, because the message is not very clear, I think. I'm trying to explain that these three disciplines are interrelated. So I use triangle, but I think the triangle makes it more confusing. So I tried to switch to this type of
You've got arrows.
yeah. I'm not done yet with this. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it is easier if you look for a solution in other examples. If you are stuck, right? You go to probably like best sources like Pinterest, and you try to figure out how other people solve the same problem. There are probably like 20 good solutions for this kind of dilemma. And you will have to look for inspiration after understanding the rules, why things work, that fits your approach the best. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think that's it. And also this one, is this too much green?
I like it. It's very aesthetic. I'm not quite sure like what I'm looking at.
For typical investors, they know what TAM, SAM,
Okay.
SOM is.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So it's explaining this is like the total addressable market, talking about the whole population in Malaysia. And then this is the smaller a subset within that total market. And then this is the one that we can target for our business, basically. This is it.
So basically the area shape, they don't really bear any kind of like relation to the numbers of 14.4 and 1.8. That is just an aesthetic way how to present it in your
Yeah.
eyes.
Yeah. But for the audience, as soon as they look at TAM, SAM, SOM, they understand what I'm talking about.
I
Because
understand.
TAM is supposed to be the biggest, and then SOM is the smallest. So
Okay.
that's the only message that I'm trying to say, basically, just telling them the numbers.
Yeah.
So it's mostly more as more on the aesthetic. Is it more? Is it creating distraction or not?
I like it. For the only thing what would bother me here, if I'm using decoration as decoration, that works. If I'm using decoration for representation of numbers, then we have to deal with balance. If you've got a 14 million adults, I would make this proportional to the 4 million and to the 1,800. Of course, 1,800 might be a small little dot compared like to the 14 million. You can visually guide this. There doesn't have to be a precise scientific representation in terms of how many pixels is 14 million, how many pixels is 1,800. But in terms of relative market size, you can use that to illustrate better kind of like current potential, low-hanging fruit, upcoming potential, and total potential in a way. But it does represent somehow like a volume of like the market. So if your aesthetic is based on this kind of like color theme, and if you can carry this through, then it makes sense. If this is a slide which stands by itself with this aesthetics, then I would probably not do it. For example, if you're using this half pill aesthetics, then your graphs on your slide above in red should have the same kind of aesthetics, right? There would be like one part it is flat, the other one is rounded when it comes to your graph. So you can carry on the same aesthetics through the slides.
I see.
Yeah.
Which is hard, actually. So this is too overpowering, this one particular slide with this kind of color scheme then.
Yeah. It's a bit strong. It looks beautiful, but if you want to use this aesthetics, you have to figure out how you're gonna integrate this into your tree discipline approach
Uh-huh.
without repeating this thing and like confusing people. How do we integrate this into graphs? Do they have options for graphs where you have like the beginning part flat and the ending part round? Then you can use that kind of aesthetics. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll
That's
reconsider
it.
this. Yeah. Okay. I think that's it. Thank you so much, F.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Indonesia team, anyone would like to volunteer?
Okay, I start with mine first. Let me share my screen. Okay, last time you did mention that for the image, try to focus on the lifestyle of the high net worth people. Where do they normally go? Their everyday lifestyle. So I changed the image for this of a managers talking to the high net worth people in coffee shop rather than a standard two people talking inside an office. So, and then I did adjust the positions to make sure that it is always shows these two people. So that's it.
Okay. Yeah, it has a good job on like getting the people, finding the picture of like salespeople in a coffee shop is a hard thing to do. You probably maybe did like generate some AI with it. This guy, from my impression, comes across a little bit creepy, kind of like a insurance salesman trying to convince like an old lady to give him his money. But it is just my feeling. I think it is a much better visual now than it was before. If this one works for you, I think it is good. You have a lot of visual space here, and you've got a lot of compacted information space here, right? So I think general all over it does work. Certain things I would probably do a bit differently, but the register now, I think it is almost to your is left aligned, which everything is in there. So you follow like your alignment rules here, which is good for balance. However, it doesn't make me want to click it, that position. I would make it probably bigger and move, in this case, align the text, like early bird, 10% discount, etc., align this onto the right. So you have a little bit more, it is a bit more centered, it is more easier to click on instead of like it pushing it always all out to one side. That would be just my take on this. So the most important part in this information is register now, right? That is the action you want from this interaction. And that has to be the most important thing in the slide. Right? So figure out like if it works better right aligned on the thing together with this text on it, just for that lower bottom part, to see if this works actually better. Okay, thank you. Looks good.
Thank you.
Can I go next?
Hello.
Hi, hello everyone. So I share my screen. So last week, I'm sharing the EDM. So this is the updated version that I work on based on the feedback last week. So the feedback was to focus more on the target audience and the key benefit, and also the value that we are offering. So in this new version, I refine the wording to speak more directly to my target audience, which is HRLND and also banking financial professional. And it's also highlighted a benefit of attending the public program, and also the value proposition, which is we have the early bird discount.
All
So
right. So for your understanding, what is the most important thing in this artwork here? The most important thing for you.
the most important thing to get people sign up to my program, and then also
Right.
to let them know that we have this new dates.
Okay. So, and what do you think is an important information for the person that is actually looking at this artwork? Why would he continue reading? Let's say you're starting. Let me understand this first. The top text part here, that white text, that is part of your artwork, right?
Sorry?
The top white text here,
Uh-huh.
that is part of your artwork.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think it is very hard to make people read through small text first and then throwing them a big colorful graphic later. They'll just start and then they go straight down. They don't gonna read everything, right? So you have to figure out how to make this more relevant to the person. Maybe it is too much information. Maybe this information can be placed under the red graphic, or part
Oh,
of the information can be placed under the red graphic. Then another important information for them is like you have a discount, right? This
yep.
discount is very aesthetically hidden inside of your graphic. I would put this up, right? Give him like the user has to understand very fast and quickly what this information is all about, right? What is in for that person? Make this important for them to read the next paragraph, right? Sometimes it is, hey, early bird 10% discount. This has to be up. Otherwise, they'll miss it. They're never going to get down there. You're going to lose like the person before it has even started, right? So your discount has to be more visible. On the top part of the text, you have to figure out what is on your black and white area, if you scroll up, what is the most important thing for that user? Yeah, to want to engage in this program. It is like IBF accredited. If this is important, put it up there, right? But just by making a text bold, in this case, you have too many bold text and it makes the text very confusing. It becomes harder to read instead of clarity. Right. I would, out of like those 4 paragraphs, focus on 1 paragraph. What is the most important thing in here for that user, right? Use that one, make this bigger. The rest, put it below, right?
Okay. All right.
Then when you come to your text blocks, I think this is an interesting exercise. It looks everything a bit tight. When you have in your second column your text blocks, they are very dense, right? You have to give your lines a bit more space. Like on the also program fee, that is almost touching, right? You have to give your lines space to breathe so you can read it easier. Right. Yeah, and then like your discounts, you have to figure out how to highlight this. Important thing, how to catch your bait has to be on the top, right? You're fishing for a fish, so you have to have a juicy worm to catch the fish. That is important on the top. Might be discount, might be like the accreditation. I don't know what it might be. You have to figure this out for that user. What is important? Put it in the top so they continue reading, right? The benefit first, and then the information, and then additional information at the bottom of it if they want to read it, right? So you have to balance your way how you present the amount of information in your artwork.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Can I do next? Okay, I will show my screen. Last week, I show about WeLearn website that your feedback is I need to put the product on the website, but I cannot do it in a short time because the product haven't launched yet. So this time I will show another design. This is a flyer for client training. This is a different client, and I have a challenge or problem doing these two design because sometimes clients wants to put more details on the template on the flyer, but it makes the flyer less aesthetic, and sometimes I confusing to put the word on it. Can you help me how to handle it or give me suggestion to this problem?
Yeah. Sometimes the client just doesn't understand that too much information is not better, right? The client has to figure out what is the most important information for the person reading this. A lot of companies make a mistake of believing that like their story is more important what the customer wants, and the customer being the person who's actually like clicking on it, right? I have to figure out what's important for the customer. Yeah. And second, how does my corporate information affect his clicking behavior, right? So like, how much information does he need to click? I cannot just throw everything in there and make everything big. That doesn't work. It's just confusing. People just skip it and it has no traction whatsoever. You as a designer, you have to figure out how to make the important things stand out so the person actually is going to look at it, yeah, and understand it. And it has enough information for them to complete the action, to click on that thing. You're absolutely right. That is, I don't know what the final size of like this is. Is this a slide or is it a banner?
This banner flyer.
A flyer is a digital flyer. Is this online or is it offline? What is this?
Online.
Online.
On.
So how big would it be?
This is the this is just looks like this, not that big and not that small. Sorry, I cannot make it more bigger.
Okay, so it is about
A5 or A
okay, A5
size.
All right. How old is your target customer here? Customer, the person who is actually looking at it.
Specifically for our client. This is specifically for Lazada because I made it special for their event, for their training. So
Okay,
this
so
bigger,
Lazada is your client, right?
yes. And
Okay.
I use their template color for the
How much of this design is their template?
sorry, can you repeat? I can clear.
Yeah. How much of this design work is from their template?
Just the color. The other
colors.
things I made by myself.
Okay. So I'm assuming it's going to be addressing younger staff
Yes,
of Lazada.
I think.
Okay. Yeah, it's okay. It's very funky. Having white text on color background, it makes it harder to read, right? As being the opposite. I know that you want to funk this up a little bit. It's kind of hard to read. I don't know what I have to look at first here. That is my problem, right? Can you explain a little bit?
Okay, this is our training program SL2. This is our training. I put there Ibu Agustina Mulia, and I put the information about the program outline, our learning objective, and the like detailed information, the location, and the time.
Okay, so I think like your biggest catch copy here is the one in that pink text block.
Okay, the
Stronger leaders.
stronger leaders. Okay.
That is, and you've got like Augustina on the top, which is, unless she's a celebrity in that group, and people love her, then you put her on top. Otherwise, you'll put her lower because she is not the most important thing in there, right? The most important thing what the person needs to understand reading this is like, what is this? This has to be very, very clear, right? Your SLII logo is great if people know that and they want to be part of this thing. Then you make it big. Otherwise, make it smaller. It's not so important, right? Is this their program or is this your program? That SLII.
SL2 is this Momentas program.
Is
It's
your
for-
Momentas program. So
yeah, training
it's
client.
not, yeah, it's not so important for that person reading it because they don't know what it is, right? So that one has to be a quality statement from Momenta that is that program's name. Make this smaller. Put in the main part has to be stronger leaders, smarter teams, right? Lead with clarity. That is what you will get, your take back from this program. People need to understand it. This has to be on the top. This SLII could be even under this catch copy. This is the supporting part, is your main copy, and the supporting part is like your SLII, right? This could be smaller. They don't need to understand what it is. It just stands there as your quality standard, right? But your stronger leader, this has to be on the top. And then you put your outline, what your program is, your event details, right? For some people, which if they're busy, make them understand this very clearly. What you're going to get from it, you text from like the pink box on the top, SLI below that, smaller, and then you give them like your dates. When is it? For them to say, okay, this is interesting. Can I actually attend? And they say, yeah, I can attend. What do I gonna get out of it? Your program outline. And that is it. So you have to rework the flow. Right? Normally it is a bad sign for a design if I have to ask, what is this for? Because that means there is no clarity, right? So clarity is first. What is it in for the person reading it? Understand it in 2 seconds. That is it. I'll read more, right? When is it? I've got time, I can do this. What is it really doing? And then you need to have a call for action somewhere. Is there a sign up for it? Do we click? Don't we click? Is it just information for them to have? Maybe I can forget. Maybe you have a calendar reminder. Put this onto my calendar. An interactive link to that user's calendar. I don't know. Figure out your call for action in there. Otherwise, it is a piece of information which this reads, I want to participate, but then how? How can I, right? So call for action is important.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Just one thing to add on, F. So SL2 is a flagship program by Ken Blanchard, which
I see.
stands for situational leadership. So this is actually an eye catcher that you want to learn about situational leadership. So it
Okay.
has to be on top. It is offered by Momenta Indonesia as a partner to Ken Blanchard. And this is what attracts people towards this program, basically, who are looking for some situational leadership kind of courses. The
Okay.
rest of, so putting it small might lose its impact. But yeah, I agree with rest of the things that you mentioned about the stuff to be, there should be some hero, which is the leadership thing, and then some supporting things, and then register now or something like that.
Okay. Very good. Very valid. Who is next?
I'd like to present next. So I'll be sharing my screen. So hi everyone, I'm Izatu. And last week during my presentation, I've shown you a good clinic social media, and you've commented that we need a consistent in key visual and also style guide. And since we haven't kickstarted the AGC social media yet, I've found several references that we can follow for the key visual and also the video editing style guide. So here is the first reference that I found. So the color of the font and also the text, the color of the text and also the fonts are similar across all of their videos. So I think that is the consistency that you've mentioned last week, if I'm not mistaken, F.
Yeah, well, it's got some consistency. It might not really work all the time. So that is, they're trying to do this right, but I think the execution needs a lot of work here. Like this, you see like this yellow text in here. The biggest problem you have, once you put this onto a lighter background, you can't read it anymore, right?
Yes.
And then you have to put like some kind of like a soft shadow under it so it has some contrast from like
this one, right?
the back, right? If this is too hard or if it's just a black outline around the text, then it becomes overly complex, right? Especially if you've got too many words, then it's hard to read. And if you need to put text onto a visual, it is normally important. So that is like a clarification information for that visual, right? So I think they try to do the right thing. I think the implementation is not very good. So I would not use them as your inspiration. I would look for a simpler way how to do this. Right? Design is always about simplifying. It's never about decorating. If you go into a restaurant, right, and has been commissioned by a good interior design company, and like it looks very sharp, etc., and it has all of the elements which you like, and then there comes like the wife of like the owner, and she starts putting her personal touches there. Normally, like put this one here, hang this one here, put some flowers in here, and tack it, tick it, tick. And within like a month, this place looks like a war zone. Disaster. A lot of decoration everywhere. Design is simplicity, it's not decorating. Design is taking stuff away. Make the important thing speak, right? That is what design is. I have the elements where they are needed. What they did here, I think they just put the same text, the same color in there somehow, but it does not make them better. An easier way would be to have a template of sorts to help you guide to have like, it's always the brand is going to be here. There's the logo space for the brand. It's going to be always on this side, always this color. Your text block is going to be supporting like the image because you want to have something lively in there, something human that people can relate to. But the text needs to be clear, right? So you figure out to create a template for yourself. What is maybe is a header important, and then maybe a sub caption in there, not longer than like, I don't know, each line 3 to 4 words maximum, always at this size and this color and maybe this background so it can stand there, right? And then you have something that you can work with consistently, and you're not trying to decorate your posts.
Okay,
Do you get
understood.
my point?
Yes.
Yeah.
Isato, can we roughly see what are the other 2 references you have?
Yes, sure. This one, I mainly focus on the Reels cover. So it looks quite good and highlighted to me.
Mhm. You see, this is much more consistent, right?
Yeah.
So you use one specific type in one specific color, and where you don't, they found a smart solution here to bring the text always out without having to drop a shadow or putting outlines around it, is by having a gradient bring clarity to the text. So that is a smart solution. This could be something that you can incorporate into your template, how to work with it. You see, like here on the picture on the right side with the 2 ladies
Yes.
it's a connection, this area. Here, unfortunately, it does not work, right? The text is, I don't know, it is very unreadable. You have to really concentrate in order to read it. Versus like the other ones where they were using like a gradient over the image and then put the text on top of it. So the text has a natural separation from like the background.
So it stands out.
Yeah.
Whatever we wanted to highlight on.
Yeah, and it makes the whole thing a little bit softer, especially if you've got like a white gradient in there, which merges into the image. It makes it more approachable, maybe makes it look a bit more caring. I don't know if you want to use that word. But this page, it looks like they have it a little bit more together. It can be improved vastly, but I think this is a much better example. Do you have another example?
Yes, I have another one. This is the last one. This one is quite fancy, funky. Do we say that?
Yeah, this is, I think, like that is talking to a different client than the clients you want to attract.
Yes. Yeah.
That is, yeah. But at least they have figured out like a template how to present the information.
Yes.
It probably works for them. Is it a pet shop or what is it?
It's
That's a
a
dentist.
dentist. Yeah.
It's a dentist. Okay. Yeah. Well, if it's probably Malay thing. I don't know. Is
Yeah. So this one is better for us to refer to.
yeah. This is. I think this one, this direction would be more interesting for you because it is a bit softer, is a bit more aesthetic, but it's still too complicated. Yeah. So,
Ah,
you know, that is. But I think like what you can steal from them is that white gradient with text on it. That and what they did correctly is like they followed one type, one typeface. I would never mix more than two different typefaces in one artwork. Just for balance and clarity, you don't need more than two. Here they do a sans serif and then a serif font. A serif font is like which you have got like decorations on like the letters, like the L would have like those little edges, and the
yeah,
sans serif means like just block here. So
yeah.
they use a combination of both. Not all of the combinations always work. In this case, it does work. So your main title is always like this serif font. That I think it's a good idea. This is something you can copy, that approach. So that's my comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Af. We will definitely take into account of your feedbacks and suggestions. Thank
You
you.
know, just throw a couple of like your ideas, rework them, and put them into like a grid. Let's say of like three on the top, three at the bottom, right? You see like how your color is working, and then you find your color theme for your postings. That like in this case they're sticking more to like their blues, which is a good idea to have some consistency in there. I would play with like two main colors, the text always in one color, but your thematics would be, for example, your teal color and a color that works with teal. You can use complementary colors like opposite on that color wheel, or tertiary colors which are on the other side, like a triangle. Those ones will also work with it. You figure out what are the two main theme colors to work with on your posting so you get a little bit more variety, but you still have a balance in there. And then once you put them into a grid, then you can see, oh, this works. It has a consistency flow in there. It is appealing to the customer which I'm trying to attract. And then you work on the clarity of like your message, how you position your message, that it is clear and interesting for the user, right? Because otherwise you don't get anything out from them.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Af.
Hi, F. We are at 3 p.m. now. Would you like to take a short break?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Back in
5-minute
5.
break. Okay.
Okay,
All right.
great.
Okay.
Thank you.
See you, everyone. We'll be back at 3:05. Okay.
Hi there. Everybody back in? All right. How many people do we have more to show us their artwork?
Can I go next?
Hi there.
Hi, I'm Rashi and I'm from Momenta, India. I could not attend the first session and I worked with Saurabh. So the presentation he shared, I have made some changes.
Okay, go ahead. All right, Raji, can you please zoom in a little bit into your artwork?
Yes, yes. Is it fine now?
Yeah.
So this was the earlier page where you said that we should remove the grid lines and the semicircle. So we have changed it like this. And
Okay.
but it feels like it's still, different numbers are there and there is no boxing or something to separate them.
Right. Right. So you pretty much just remove the half moons and like the lines there, right? For clarity, I think both work. But for consistency, it is easier if you have less elements in your artwork, right? So can you explain a little bit about this particular slide, what you are trying to accomplish here?
So basically, this gives you a background of the market opportunity that is there for the private bankers, that there's a growing high net worth base in India. There's an industry growth momentum, and also the private banking market is expanding. That's the top three. And then we go on into explaining like there's a rising private banker demand and there's a strong skills gap that WMI is going to fill in through industry first certification based program and a structured career path, which is globally recognized through IBF and with practical skills training.
Okay, so it's basically a problem solution approach.
Yep.
Okay. I would probably then try to clarify that this is an opportunity, as you were mentioning in your title, is clear, where I would make this a little bit more direct is by maybe not having everything on one slide. Then again, that comes to simplification, because like right now it looks a bit overwhelming and a bit boring, right? So the engagement part is just read it, get it, and move on, versus a more structured approach where you feel like, that is the problem and there's the solution, right? It's like there's the opportunity, that is what you can do with it. So if you block it this way, then you can have lesser contents but clearer communication, right? Maybe sometimes you might have like two problems and one solution, right? So I would try to make this to use this approach to convey the need for like the solution a bit more obvious. Right? You can do this in different ways, but today we'll talk about some of like the rules, and then you can use those rules to apply this to this particular slide. Right? It mainly has to do with your symmetries and with your grouping. Right? What you group your problems, you have a solution to it. And that is basically your immediate improvement on like how you present information on one slide.
Got it. Rashid, can you quickly show? Yeah, this one.
So this was the previous slide, and you said that we should highlight the keywords. So I made it more simpler because there is not so much of content part.
Yeah. All right. What is the most important information on the slide?
I think the unfair advantage of being founded by Momenta Group, and we are already recognized since 20 plus years and have private banking clients already as our long-term clients, not only in India, but globally.
Okay. So basically it's like your global presence and your key clients in there, right?
Right.
All right. Maybe we can do this a bit differently without having to resort to a very standard text-based approach. Is if you want them to look at things and understand them fast, it's like you have to elevate this information. And now you're bearing this information on the third paragraph.
Yep.
So I would probably put this in there above everything else and make this sure that it's like a global network. And then use the logos of those clients. You don't have to spell them out, right? You just use their logos. And then you see if like, oh, that's the company, that's other clients. And then the other information below that.
Right.
Right. So you have a little bit more rhythm inside of it because you're using the icons of like those banks or those clients. And you can use this either in the original colors or you just turn them into a neutral gray, right? So like they stand by themselves, they don't have to compete with colors, etc., etc. So, but use like their logos.
Right.
That's what I would do.
The program page.
So this was the earlier page, which was too cluttered.
No, go back. The one that you made.
Yes.
This one.
This is the new. The upper part can be fixed, like there is too much space here, so we can fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, you have like you're basically dealing with 3 different blocks here.
Right. Program approach and then details about the participants, pricing, and yeah.
Yeah. You have to figure out how to use your spaces to convey like the information here. On your first text block here, try to make this a little bit more. It is simpler now, but you have a problem with your spacing here, right? Then you've got either you use the first 6 boxes, your white outline boxes here, and make them a bit larger. On your icons for the approach, which is a nice way to simplify your information, I would put them in probably vertical in the middle of it. And then you have your program outlines on your right side. But you have to figure out how this is actually flowing, right? So if you want to approach first or the certification boxes first, then again, like then you might not need that yellow line anymore. If you have those gray boxed icons vertically, right? Also figure out like consistency without having to decorate too much. If you're using like your boxes on your left side, use a similar approach to your icon area, right? So if your icons would be stacked vertically, like a tower in the center, then do they actually need a frame around it? Or can they live without it, right? Do they need to have the gray box? Or can they live without it? Yeah. How do you convey the clarity of information, right? So you have to play with this and to balance this out. Then you can actually stretch out your first boxes and figure out how to keep everything somehow balanced, because there's a lot of information on the slide. I would rework this so you have a bit better control of your proportions here. Also, your text flow is it's almost flowing out of like your frame here on your point number 7, client legacy planning. You may have to shrink this down or re-edit this sentence so it fits into your block a little bit better, but keep it sharp as possible, right? But there again, it's like use as few words as you possibly can get away with, right? It is the same as graphical decoration. Simplify, right? Get to the point faster. Enough information for them to make a decision, right? Everything else goes into an appendix. If they want to know more, know more.
Rashid, the next one for institution and for individual. The next. This one still need to work on. Yeah, this one. This was the earlier one, and this is a new one.
So we have tried to change the header because it was too wide.
Yeah.
So this one is a smaller one. Like this was earlier one header.
Yeah, okay. The visuals, they still need to have, they need work. Also, when you're dealing with visuals, make them really relevant. Use the same block spaces for your visuals as for your text boxes. Align them to one side in a way, like, and make sure that like they don't stretch also or get squashed. You choose your proper cropping for it, but make sure like that has a visual balance in there. Yes, you might have to edit your bracket here, like bankers and career switchers, into a two-liner, but the visuals have to live in their own space, right? That another solution would be to have the visuals as your background for your titles. Let's say like you have a much longer, a wider image for institutions and have the text above like the visual. Of course, it has to be contrasting enough. So you have to choose your visuals carefully. So institutions have a correct visuals for that, have the title floating on top of like that main background visual. So you have a bit more consistency in there. This either approach can work. Depends really on the choice of images which you decide for at the end of the day. Yeah. But I think that it looks much cleaner now. Okay.
Actually, FB also needs some suggestion. So this is coming from Momenta logo, but WMAI is a different brand. We want to showcase that it is coming from Momenta, but also has its own identity. Now, right now, it's just a color change from red to this dark blue and purple and golden color. If we have to change that overall feel of WMAI and stand of its own, should we go for an altogether new, what do you say, the design language or brand logos, colors, like remove the arrows altogether, or should we continue using Momenta India?
Well, this is your corporate branding
Yep.
decision
Yes.
in a way. Like the simplest way to explain a brand with cultural context is like if you look at like a well-designed magazine, for example, like let's say Vogue, fashion magazines. So like, yes, the layouts tend to be a little bit more classy yet avant-garde, like fresh, new, trendy in their own category in a way. And you look at Vogue Japan and Vogue Paris and Vogue America, they're completely different. It's the same brand, but they speak to different cultures, to different aesthetics. What works for one country might not work for the other country, right? They have all different perceptions. So if you want to use Momenta as a base theme for it, but have a different color code for it, I think that would be a great solution. So you still have the support of like the mother brand in a way, but you regionalize it and keep like a very similar aesthetic for it. So, and you will probably have like a lot of more brand support if you keep with the Momenta templates. As Dean showed like last week, they are working on a new set of templates. So if you keep in mind that like you are reusing their templates, just localize it, then you will have much more overall support from the brand. Instead of coming up with a complete new set for your local brand, plus a support of Momenta somehow in relation. So I would, everything what is related to brand, I would consider very carefully what are like the real benefits of like going with like the mother brand or rebranding completely. Rebranding completely is a bigger exercise and it requires a lot of new artwork. You probably have to talk with different agencies to come up with some solutions. And depending on the agencies, they give you rubbish or great work, and prices vary completely. So if you have already access to a good set of like templates, you just have to color code this, then
Localize.
I would go with the mother brand solution.
Sounds good. Just one slide for me that I would like to share, Rashi. So if you can unshare, and just a sec. So what you were just sharing about putting them into 3 different groups, we did that here earlier. This is how it used to look. Just a sec. Let me do it full screen. So we try to put it in 3 different boxes like this to put simplicity, and then move to the other part of giving it more up feel. But now we are stuck in between which methodology to follow.
Yeah, I know like here you need to have a couple of elements to break all of like this text up in a way.
Right.
My first suggestion would be like use your real estate. And in this case, the header template is stealing you what? It's like
25% above.
That is it is not important. It's important for Momenta brand, but for that particular slide, it is just it just steals you too much space. Once you recoup most of the space, you probably have like an option to have like a tighter header here. rework this here, and here, like the hardest thing is like you have to create a flow, right? The flow meaning sort of like how you are guiding the user through this information. Is it, people normally look at like pictures first, right? So like they will gravitate towards your approach icons. And then they're lost and stuff like, oh, what is it? They go back to your first paragraph and stuff like, what is that? And they don't know. Like you go to program, and by that time you lost them a little bit. So it is important to figure out how to guide the eye through this information. Normally, it is by having text larger or bolder. In this case, if you're switching the point size of your type, it has to be more important, like your subtitles here, they, number one, the point size needs to go up, and they need to get bolder. So when it comes to typefaces, depending on the set of typefaces you have, it's like you've got from fine to regular to, I don't know, semi-bold to bold to extra to fat. You have different sets of strength of like the typeface. Normally, what is a good rule is to have the title 2 times higher.
Okay.
In strength than like than the main title. And also when it comes to sizing it, depending really on the amount of information you have on the slide, is to make it much larger. It's like if you have the title, it has got, I don't know, 30 points, right, in terms of like size. Then your body should be at least half. So at least 15, and then you can play with if it's 18 or if it's 20. But it has to be significantly different for it to make your eye look at the headers more, or like look at the titles more carefully. And therefore, you will also create a little bit of a break between like your main contents, and it doesn't become all the same. Right? But for that, you need to have space. Right? You need to have white space, and you need to be able to guide the people to the information you want. Right? You see, like this is my biggest beef I have with Microsoft, is that like they train the people, the users of Microsoft products, to think, they not think about their real estate. Normally, like the toolbars in Microsoft, they are kind of like occupying such a big space on your screen. If you're just working on one screen, you're basically screwed. You are robbed constantly of
many ribbons.
Yeah, so it's like rethink about what's really needed, push your headers to like the minimum which is needed for your brand. The rest is like you have this real estate to present your product in a flow that works for the client.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
That is just nuts. Okay, sorry. Now, do we have somebody else?
I think all done.
Yep, I can go next.
Okay, go ahead, please.
This is the before, and I format it to this one. I still use the same cover page, but based on your feedback, I make it more professional look than your feedback was my slide before looks a bit young, so I make it more professional and clean. So I minimize the use of the image. I still use, but I put it at the back of a shape and just minimize the visual. And this is the learning objective. This is, by the way, this is for face-to-face training. So from this one, I format it to this one, a bit cleaner. And for the agenda, for this one, I think it's still look a bit busy, but yep, I would like to know your feedback on this one.
I think this is actually very clear. I would align your training agenda, your left-hand text, to the top area where you have got your number 1 in there. So it doesn't, your eye doesn't have to go up and down, you know.
Okay.
First, yeah. That would be for that slide. I think that the rest works fine. The previous slides, I would remove some of the decorations you have in there. Can you go up again to your second slide? Yeah, here. You see, like here you've got your titles, you have it placed above on the same level as your objective, your 01 activities objective. Keep it that way. I would remove the weird puzzling people, weird background in there. That is distracting. I would not put it in place at all. Keep it simple, right? Also, when you're using your big color blocks, do you need the blue line in there? Can it be just yellow? Right?
Okay.
Right. There was like another slide. Maybe it's the first one. Or second, third. No. Okay, here, stop. The learning objectives here. Here, your left-hand title is balanced with your right-hand information, but don't use drop shadows on your round circles there.
Okay.
Yeah, think of it like, how much can I remove, right? You don't need more complexity. You only use additional elements when you need them to understand it clearer, or you need to bring out the text in a certain way. Then use something. But otherwise, remove everything else, right? If it's not needed. But I think your color choices are very nicely balanced and so forth. This can work. Do you need the image in there? It's a smart image, but you would have to be very, very consistent with your choice of images, and then every slide needs to have a really relevant image in there. Otherwise, I'd remove it and just have like a color block in there.
Okay, got it.
Right? Because like the more elements you put in there, the more distraction you're giving the slide. You need them to be focusing on the 3 points here, right? Don't make them look at like that light bulb with like the Diana thing in there. Just have it as a simple, like whatever color that might be, graphic block in there. That would be simpler. All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody still brave enough to show their work? Or can we proceed to the next chapter?
think we covered most.
Yeah.
Let's proceed.
Okay. So I'm assuming everybody can see this here. So design is to build a coherent infrastructure of components that work together on a predefined logic. And that is actually very simple. It's like everything you design has a purpose for it, right? And it might be a database, a space station, or a PowerPoint presentation. So try to build it with as few components as possible, but each one fulfills its function, right? And that is how we achieve clarity. And therefore, there are a couple of rules in order to help you achieve this clarity. Most important of all is that you completely understand the topic and the function of your creation. And might it be a LinkedIn post, a PowerPoint presentation, a billboard. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever. You need to understand clearly what the objective is of this artwork, what you want to achieve. In order to do this, you really listen, observe. If you don't know, ask them, get clarity, so you are able to create something which is compelling and simple to understand and engages this person which is looking at that particular artwork. Now, this is a bit of a messy slide. This is probably the slide with the most text we have in here. We say, like, we need to understand before, right? Your goal and your audience, right? And what action is required from the user, from the observer, right? What do you want to get out of this? But in order to do this, you need to understand your audience, right? Who are they, right? Put yourself into their persona. What do they want? What do they need? What are they looking for? You might think that's exactly the same thing, huh? What you want, what you need, what you're looking for, it's the same. It's not. For example, if a person wants to buy a car, right? Money, no objection. You've got plenty of money, you just inherited a fortune. So what car do you want? You might think, I'm gonna be buying me this and that and this and that. Choose one car, right? So you might want to buy like a Porsche. I don't know. Let's give it a Porsche. This is what you want. But what you need is a car that drives you from your home to the office. And then you do your weekend shopping. So you need some space in there. And then you bring your kids to the mall and maybe auntie and then maybe your partner. And then you already need 5 seats in there and you need some boot space. Then you're probably looking at some SUV type. That is what you need. And what you're looking for then is a combination of both, where you actually want a sports car, but you actually need a SUV. So you're gonna get a sporty SUV. And this is what you're looking for. So if you understand that, what your clients want is not what he needs, right? So if you're selling a program, what that person in charge of making the recommendation or like the purchasing of this program wants and needs are two completely different things, right? So you have to really understand your audience. So like what they want. What they want is probably what they're going to be looking at, right? It's like you're looking at a Porsche. Because this is what you really want. But what you need is different. So you figure this out, show them what they want, highlight what they need, and then you have almost like what they are looking for, right? So in design, you can have many tools to your disposal. Key visuals, right? Words. If you understand your audience, you know what key visuals they will be reacting to, right? What they want, right? What words are they reacting to, right? What emotions, as a combination of your key visuals, your words, your emotions, how you get their attention. Most important thing, get their attention first, right? And then like obviously like for online, when you've got like, let's say like you have a LinkedIn post you are working on, you have to figure out what hour of the day will they be reading this post? Is it in the morning or is it in the late afternoon? So that is basically like a key consideration for you to take. So what day of the week are you posting? And in what state of mind will they be in? So if you're posting on Monday morning or on Friday afternoon, you have to choose your visuals that are completely in sync with your objective, but you also have to address the frame of mind of the audience. So once you actually achieve this, then you're pretty golden. So the key elements which you need really to consider is for good design to anchor your message in the observer's head, right? That is basically they get it, right? Second, they remember your brand. How many times have you seen a great TikTok, YouTube, TV commercial, which was extremely funny and memorable and so forth, and you share with your friends and say, have you seen this, that? And, oh yeah, great, but you have no idea what brand it was. And that happens to a lot of agencies which are creating great commercials, but they don't have brand retention, right? So that is one of the biggest pitfalls. However, if your brief is that like, you just need to create awareness of this category, then just awareness is good. But you should consider that like you need to have your branding in there, right? So like they recall, oh, you're selling this kind of potato chip and it is funny and it is this brand. And then you just need one more element in there. You call for action, right? If you get everything right, then you understand your client, you understand your key objective, you have executed it to your best abilities, you have reached them, they retain the message, and they take action. However you do this, if this is with words, with this visuals, with animations, it doesn't make a difference, right? The key is like they have to do something, and you have to figure out what you really want from them, right? So as we have seen with like some of your design work is like where you have a lot of information, you have to figure out what is really important, right? And in a lot of cases, like where like you have superiors or like you have bosses, and they tell you, make this one, and then we have to put this one, is important, make it bigger. And then, that is also important. And then the date also important, make it bigger, make it a little bit more stronger, maybe make it red or something. It has to be loud, and then you've got 5 elements in there competing for attention, and it's a complete disaster. So you have to prioritize what is really your key message in there, what you want them to understand, or what action do you want them to execute, right? It has to be prioritized. What is the most important thing? Everything else is secondary. If it's not important, throw it out. No need, right? Try to get things done with the least amount of components you have in your space, and then structure them sort of like, what's important, right? How do I engage the person? Not what's important for me. What's important for me is the action, right? It's like, if you execute the priority first, it's like, what's important for them? They look at this, they understand it, they read it, then they take action, right? So that is a key part on like design. Figure out what's really important here, right? And make this stand. You've seen this post here probably many times, and that is how our mind is working. We'll have a couple of text blocks in here. By prioritizing, using rules, you guide them to do certain things. They'll read the header first because it's black and white. The mind is simple and it doesn't like complexity, so it goes for the easiest one first. Big on dark text on light background. Light text on colored background or in darker background is harder for the mind to read. If you had to read a book printed on black pages with white text on it, I guarantee you within like 3 pages, you will take the book and throw it against the wall. It's just, the mind just doesn't like it, right? So this is how you guide your brain through the different steps, by using space, type, weight, like how heavy the type is, and by size of the text, and placement. Where do you place it, right? So that is a simplified version of it. You can read as many design and layout books as you want to read, and like they have all their own 10 steps, 20 steps to clarity and so forth. The more experienced you become, the less important all of those rules are, because like they're innate to your thinking. And it just feels the way it's supposed to. At the beginning, you still need the rules to figure out how to drive through the city. And when you have driven around the city for 30 years, you probably don't need a map anymore. You know exactly what is what and where the shortcuts are. So here, this is exactly the same way. And that applies to most of like your graphical work. Might it be like PowerPoints or product packaging, right? Number one is like, make them stop and look. Anything works this way. If there's a post somewhere, if it doesn't catch your eye, they'll don't care about this information at all. Header, title, it doesn't make a difference. They don't see it. Make them see your artwork, right? Number two, it has to be clear. Make them understand it. What am I looking at? It attracts me. I'm looking, I see it, I read it, I get it. Now, if this information is relevant for that person, they'll continue reading. If it's not relevant, it's not your customer, they move on. So you pre-filter all of this. But important is clarity. Make them understand what they're looking at. And then obviously, like, it has to be written and composed in a fashion that they are interested. So you need to understand your customer. What are their concerns? What do they want, right? And it has to be written so clearly that like there is no more question in their mind. So I'm like, boom, get it, I get it, I get it, I get it. Basically, a yes, 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 yes on everything they see. And then you have your call for action. Once they see you, they understand you, everything is relevant for them, right? They're completely crystal clear of what you're offering them. There are no more questions in their head. Using as few words as possible, or few graphical components as possible. Then you have your call for action, and then like they just click on it because you got them. If you can execute this right, then you've got it. Then you've got executed a really good piece of information. Having said all of this, then we have this one here. Nothing is more complex than Japanese graphics. This is a cover for a kid's comic. And you look at it and you think, the Japanese, they should have figured this out. They should have like clarity in there, structure, sort of like balance. And you look at this disaster and say, like, my God, what happened here? And this is the standard. Most of the comics, they look like this. And that is your typical case of like your superior coming to you and said, oh, we need this one and we need this one. And can you make this bigger? And that one, I need as well, and here and here and here. And they managed to cramp everything inside. It is so complex and so confusing, using I don't know how many different fonts in here and all different screaming color, and everything is important. And you've got small little details which you can't even read. It's so complex, but it serves a function. And the function is that like it speaks to the brain of an 8-year-old kid living somewhere in countryside Japan. He goes to the convenience store and then sees this mind explosion. For him, everything is fantastic in here. I have this and this. It's a complete exploration, an explosion of his small little mind. And he sees all of that and stuff like he needs to have it. So this is where like your cultural aspect, how you grow up, what do you see is all important. Now, most of your artwork will probably not speak to the mind of an 8-year-old. So you need this to be a little bit more simplified instead of like a complete chaos as in this magazine. And you might think that like, oh, this is just like one out of chaos, shut up. One out of many. That is how a magazine looks like, a magazine stand in Japan. It's a complete confusion, right? So you have no clarity there. You have just absolutely a brain soup of fonts and graphics and highlights and look at me, look at me, look at me, and everything is the same, right? So let's try not to do this. That is complete insanity. So
The police is.
oh shit. Sorry guys. I have to take a 10 minutes break. The police is in front of my door. I have to move my car. Yeah. I'll see you here back at in 10 minutes. Hello, I'm back.
Is your car okay? F.
I tell you, Germany, they have one damn efficient police force. That is just crazy. If you park your car slightly too much to one side, they just give you hell. And it's not like somewhere else where you can just give them like a 50 or something, go away. It's kind of like that. It's like, anyhow, doesn't matter. It's solved. So, having seen all of this crazy Japanese madness, let's continue. We could talk about your tools, right? Or we can jump into rules and leave the tools for next week, because this is a bit of a lengthy and complicated topic. Let me just switch over to typography. That is something which we can cover, is probably more relevant for you all, right? The reason why Steve Jobs was so overbearing and controlling was partially because like he had a keen interest in typography out of all crazy things. This is apparently what he studied, if he ever studied anything at Berkeley. It's the art of like combining shape to create a balanced typeface. And he was extremely anal about it. This is why he was such a microcontroller of his team, because balance and shape and function was something very important to him. So typography is a very complex topic. We can talk for weeks about this, but I don't want to. The important thing to understand is that you have a few options here. Is by justifying your text to one side. That is how most of like the layouts are being created, and this is how most of the people prefer to see it. So to justify to the left is preferable of like center justification of text, where it flows out like very symmetrically. So you have it actually only on one side. And if you're a seasoned designer, you can play with multiple fonts. You understand the balance between each one, how they work together. For people which are new to the design world, it's easier to stick with one font. That means like one font that can have different weights, the thicker fonts and thinner of the same family of the font. Skip a weight. So as I said previously, it's like if you have got a title and you've got like your text body, you are jumping one weight size. So like from thin to regular to bold to extra bold. Normally font sets have like in between other weights in there. So we make sure that like the jump is significant, right? And number 4, double point size. That is kind of like something which you can use as a guide. Don't take it too literally. If it's a very simple text, then you can just have your title at 30 and then your body at 15 points, right? That has a very harmonious look and feel. However, if you are using a lot of text on your slide and you need to cramp more text in there, then you just jump this rule and adjust accordingly. This is just like a rule of thumb, what actually works. All right. And then here, align to one axis, and you basically stick through all of like the design choices with that type of alignment. Fonts, if you're working with a brand guideline, that is what you have. There's the fonts which are in the brand guideline, use them. Otherwise, use simple fonts. I listed a couple of them here. They might not work in some different writing styles. If you're in India, they might not have all of like the font sets for it. So you have to figure out what actually works there, what is representatively equal in weight and in size. But for most of your presentation, I think they're going to be in English. So stick to a simple set of fonts. I listed here a couple of them. But since you're working with style guides, stick to your style guides. PowerPoint has one big disadvantage. It does not look very good out of the box when you are typing in. The text looks too hard. That is just how this thing is designed. But using other applications, like if you are doing design work outside of like PowerPoint, there you have much better design choices, and it looks out of the box normally as a base template much cleaner than you can achieve in PowerPoint by itself. And point 7, group by using the rules. The rules will be following after this typography intro. It helps you to balance your components by grouping them. So like you have several rules and you can use them in conjunction. You not always have to use all of them, obviously. Use the ones which are most helpful to you. Then once you create a flow with it, stick to them if they make sense for that particular slide. Right? 8, avoid the corners. Make sure you keep it in the center. When your text flows out onto one side, try to bring it back into the center so you have a consistent flow. Avoiding gaps and sticking to the rules is, once you are fairly comfortable with certain fonts, then you figure out like how to use them more effectively. And I'll jump straight to the rules here. So here I'm putting only 8 principles in there. You probably heard about 10 or 12 or 20 or 30 principles. They're all great and good. I don't want to overly complicate things because you want to get to implement those rules as fast as possible into your artwork. So I'm keeping them at 8, which is like a base number to get things going, to have a basic balance inside of like your artwork. 1 is balance, right? In this graphic, you see like it doesn't look very balanced. It's on the left and it's on the right and it's on the up and the down. But in this context here, it does work, right? You have a symmetry and you have balance in here. So when we talk about balance, you have to figure out what you want to do. If you've got 2 competing text areas, like your problem solution, you have to figure out how do you balance them. So when you look at it, it makes sense, right? They're not competing against each other. Each one has its place, and you can convey the information in a balanced way. As asymmetrical, left and right, up and down. Asymmetrical, where you've got a main text area, and then you have a couple of other components, could be like icons or images on the other side. So the symmetry is not symmetrical. You have like one versus the other. Or a radial where it emanates from the center. You have like the key message and then like surrounded by your other supporting like data for the center. It takes time to figure out balance, but once you get it, then you just, it becomes a native flow for you. Most of the time, it is easier to do a symmetrical balance, left and right, or up and down. And then you make sure that you don't jump between symmetries from one slide to the next. Otherwise, people become too busy, right? In my experience. Emphasis, right? It is very crucial to implement this correctly, right? It is to highlight something which is dear to you and makes either it explains this message clearly, or for people who are just flying through the content, to say like that, it's the main part of this context, right? And then if they're interested, they read through it. So you have to make sure that like you have the most important part of those text blocks highlight if you need them to be highlighted. Yeah, it is a rule that you can use. You don't have to use, but it helps. If you're reading, for example, a product benefit of like a commercial product, as you see in like a store, right? Let's say like a shampoo. You go in there and behind it's got a lot of text in there. So small printed that like you don't want to read it. They probably have like some highlights that to bring out the main important part, which is important to the user, and highlights this out. So when you go to the shelf, you find your product, you know what it is, you turn it around, and you have your key information in there jumping at you. There's enough information for you to make a purchase decision. If you want to read more, you can read the fine print, but it is enough information for you to make the purchasing information a decision. So that is where you use highlights, where you have to really clarify the contents for fast readers. Repetition. Repetition could be a element which you're using throughout your slides. It might be like a arrow guiding them through your contents. It might be round-shaped icon field that flows through your slides. So people get, once they understand one slide, for them to jump to the second one, it's easier to understand because they already understand the dynamics, the flow, because you're repeating stuff, repeating the elements, not the information, right? So if you're having a lot of icons on several slides, use the same style, repeat the same elements, people will get the flow and it makes easier for them to read instead of like trying to explain things in one slide in words and the second one in visuals, the third one in photos, and the third one in icons. So repeat your style. Movement. Let's have like what have movement to do with PowerPoint. I'm not referring to transitional movement here, right? Although this can work, I'm not a big fan of it, but it can work. It has mainly to do with like how your eye is moving through the contents, right? How are you guiding the person to the information you need them to read, right? It could be, in general design, it could be with images, lines, perspectives to guide people into a certain area. If you're using text, you can use movement in text blocks, right? You can use them in terms of like the point size of your font. If you guide them through it, if you have this dynamic font ranges from smaller to bigger, so you can guide them through like the information in a playful way. In some artwork, that's important. Movement in your PowerPoint presentation, probably not that critical. It is useful if you want to break up the information after the slides are a little bit too repetitive. You can break this up a little bit and to be a bit more playful with the slide. If you would do this with every slide, it would be becoming very confusing. So I wouldn't do that. It is just to give people a break and to highlight certain things or to summarize certain things or to illustrate how a process is working, right? That is like where movement would be important. Proportions. That is a key part for balance and relationship. How do we keep everything together and related to each other, right? If you need to put graphics into or illustrations into your artwork, make them relevant to each other, right? So like there's a relationship between like those informations. If mainly applying to graphics, let's say like you have like as you had in the previous week in some of the slides, I remember a person holding like a light bulb. So the proportion would be obviously the light bulb has to be in proportion to the person. Now you can break this rule by making the light bulb much bigger than the person. Ergo enhancing like or emphasizing on the idea versus the person, right? But the base rule is the proportion has to be there. If you want to break this rule, then you do exactly the opposite. So there is similar purposes of group elements, keep them together and keep them balanced, right? It's a emphasis on relationship. How does one work with the other? So proportion is key for keeping your slides balanced. And the use of white space. That is probably like the biggest challenge for most of like the new designers, that they have to be or become comfortable with padding your information, your text, your graphics with enough space so like each one can live inside of it and has its own weight, right? If you pack the information in there and you don't have respect for white space, I mean background space, then the information becomes very tiring to your eye. And I don't, classical example is that like if you have something printed and if you don't have enough white space around it, then it's either it falls too close to the page or it falls too close to the binding of like that booklet or whatever it might be, or to the book. And you're having a hard time to always open your book to read it. That is one part where a lot of publishers, they don't take this into consideration, and it becomes very tedious to actually assimilate this information. White spaces, you can see this, go to high-end magazines, and you'll see like they respect the white space rule better than most other magazines, which try to cramp information in there. And it feels more relaxed, it feels more luxurious, there's more tranquility in there. And I think it presents your information ultimately in a different level, in a class by itself in a way. So. contrast, right? That is an example where you would use as a problem solution. You already have a contrast in your contents. You can graphically illustrate this by having them in an opposed kind of like color or positioning, you know, like. So you will have to play with this. Then again, consider the flow of your presentation. You cannot just go and insert a complete random slide into this, which is completely different than everything else. You have to play with the same balance. That's why brand guides are developed for this purpose, so designers don't get stuck, or non-designers don't get stuck with something they can't. They would actually break the flow of like a smooth, normally presentation. But contrast is essential if you want to highlight, obviously, differences in a way, like before and after, or like benefits, or like problem solutions, and as it was in your case. Hierarchy. That is similar to like that previous slide which we had about title, flow, how do we manipulate the people to read information. There are a couple of base hierarchies in composition where like the people read in an F symbol. It's like first line and they go down, second line and they go down. So it is very linear. The other approach is a Z, as in the slide here. We go like left to right, and then you go down diagonally through it and read through it. Obviously, it is for English speaking or English written contents here. If you do it in Arabic or in Hebrew, it is the other way around. But it helps to guide your eye through the contents. And if you do this consistently, the people will assimilate information easier because you're establishing a pattern for them. The normal tendency is to go with an F pattern, line by line, basically, line down, line down, line down. And for more like simple contents, it follows normally a Z pattern where you read the top, go down, read the bottom part, don't focus too much into the center. Right? That is how the brain somehow is working. So if you use this, then you can help the people assimilate the information easier. It's not easy. It's sometimes it is like more complicated than like it is actually like really worth. But this is how hierarchy is working in like the base basic rule set. We have another 20 rules which you can go through, but I think this is all too complex for most of like the people which are not really involved in day-to-day design work. I'd rather talk a little bit about your design tools, right? Is there any preference among you guys? What design tools you prefer to use? Like, I mean, we have different options here, right? If you are in charge of design and you're creating collaterals, web contents, social media contents, above the line, below the line kind of collaterals, then you are probably using a couple of different tools, right? If you're working in a team and you are sharing files which are being edited by other people, then you using different other tools. I never understood why the most dominant design tool is PowerPoint. And the reason for it that I hear is that like, oh, the client wants PPTs. And my question in my head is always, why does the client want a PPT? For what? Oh, to present as you can equally present with a PDF presentation. And it doesn't have the problem of like the client not having the right font sets, or like something else is different on his computer, or he's using a Mac and you get a PowerPoint from Windows, and everything breaks up. So like the fonts are not there. There's already, you get replaced by other fonts. So it always struck me as like a complete madness that like people are giving PPTs to the client. They're supposed to be receiving like the final works which are presented correctly for them to share. It's not to them to go and edit this thing around. That's not the purpose of it. So PDF should be fine. But then again, clients want PPT. So it's a mystery to me why they want to have that. So, and therefore, most of you guys are using PowerPoint to design stuff. And it is one of the worst design tools out in the market. It has got great options for making graphs and stuff, but most of the stuff you're never going to use, right? It is absolutely madness. You've got 70% of the tools in PowerPoint, which are hidden somewhere in the menus, you're never going to use. So, and it's the base part, it's just not, I think to my standard, not really good enough to be a presentation tool, right? So enough of like bashing Microsoft and PowerPoint. But this is from a designer's point of view, it is just a terrible tool. You maybe can just raise the hand. Who in this group is actively involved in like design work on a day-to-day basis? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, very good. So, and last week you introduced a little bit about yourself, about your responsibilities. So we've got a couple of tools which you are probably familiar with. I'm a bit traditional when it comes to tools. I believe like a simpler tool can achieve exactly the same thing as a complex tool. If you're experienced, new tool sets like Canva or Figma, they offer you a lot of predefined templates, right? And which are good to get things done quickly, right? Each one has got their own little set of advantages. Then you've got tools like Adobe. Then you've got Affinity, which is basically Adobe faster, better in many ways, and much cheaper. So for larger corporations or let's say design studios, agencies, Adobe will be fine and good. The only thing the drawback of Adobe is that like it is a licensed tool. So you pay monthly or yearly for having access to those tools. And if you work in a team of 5, this becomes expensive very quickly. So previously it was a flat price. Now you get charged monthly or yearly, depending on your plan and depending on the size of your team. And it works better for agencies or larger corporations which don't care about how much they spend on it. But for smaller teams where like you suddenly like get a bill of like $5,000 just for using tool sets every year, I think that is a little bit outrageous. And the advantages are not that obvious compared to Affinity. Here I listed a couple of like tools, best tools, not really 100% my choice when it comes to PowerPoint here. Canva, Figma, I think they're all very good alternatives to get things done quickly for people also new to the design world. My only problem I have with them, it is like people tend to become lazy when you have a lot of presets prefabricated for them. And that is kind of like a cookie cutter mentality to get things done quickly versus to get it done right. And sometimes speed is more important for companies than like actually like contents. So that is, I think, the key area where like Canva and Figma are really exceeding. My preferred presentation tool is Keynote versus PowerPoint. Unfortunately, it runs only on Mac, but I normally give my clients PDF files. They are not allowed to edit anything. That is it. But this is, every company has their own policies about it. So there's very little to do about it. So a lot of clients will demand PowerPoint. A lot of clients will demand Adobe Illustrator files or etc. So that is, you are stuck with those clients and with those requirements. So Illustrator, if you're familiar with it, it's gotten super extensive tool of options. Most of the designers, they probably use 20 to 30%. The rest, they don't even bother with it. It's just too strange and too weird, but they are there if you need them. So then again, it is the same thing as like, if you need a hammer, you probably don't need a hammer which has a measuring tape, a clock, and a laser pointer embedded in it. If you just need a hammer, if you know how to use a hammer. So, and Illustrator is a little bit like this. It gives you like a lot of tools, like a Swiss Army knife with about like 200 functions in it, where you only actually need one knife. But you get like 200 functions in it. So, but you have to pay the price for it, obviously. You have extreme good control over vector points, etc., where it exceeds above most of the other like design tools for vector. Affinity Designer is exactly the same as Adobe Illustrator. It is much cheaper. It is no subscription. It is like pay and own it. It is extremely compatible with a lot of file formats. So you can import InDesign files from Adobe, which otherwise no other software can import. So for collaboration workflows, it is a good transition away from Adobe. It's very similar to Illustrator. However, it doesn't have all of like the bells and whistles as Adobe has, or different plugins. Publisher is the equivalent of like Adobe InDesign. Without Adobe's InDesign's file problems and gradient problems and PDF problems, and it's much faster. It's much more intuitive. And it's a better option like for publishing like I don't know, like yearly reports, catalogs, magazines, anything which has more than like 3 pages, basically. And this has a lot of flexibility, is completely integrated within like the Affinity family of like softwares. Canva, that is like, that's one strange thing. When I first came across it, it struck me as like a silly tool. But it has obviously its merits. And I think ultimately like to do, to get started in design quickly, it is the fastest way, no learning curve, basically, to get your ideas out into the digital world. The only problem is like it is not a print-ready tool, right? So you don't have CMYK colors, you don't have bleeds, you don't have spot colors like your Pantone colors or your metallics, etc., etc. If you do something a bit more demanding, so that is for me it would be like an main online posting tool for creating your contents for your LinkedIn, your social media. And you can share your collaborative workflow with your colleagues. Figma, similar. I think it has got a bit of like a different edge. It's a bit more technical when it comes to it. It's not the best option for good illustrations. It's more for your layout tools. And I think it's most of you are using it. How many people are using Figma in your group? Raise your hand. Nobody? Who's using Canva? Yeah, I see. Yeah, I understand. This is like, yeah, this is where the software development goes. May I ask, like, out of like all the different design tools here, what is your favorite one? I put it this way. Who prefers Adobe? Lift your hand. Okay. Who prefers Affinity? Okay. Okay. Who prefers Figma? Okay. Tom. All right. And who prefers Canva? Oh dear. Okay. There's a clear winner, isn't it? That's okay. And who prefers PowerPoint? Yeah. You prefer? Ollie, you prefer PowerPoint? Okay.
I'm a business person. I got no choice. Everybody asks for PPT.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I'm like, everybody got a headache, you take Panadol, right? For there are 10 other brands which do exactly the same thing, but people ask for Panadol. Yeah, it's a very strange world. So there's only one series Adobe user here.
No, I use Adobe too.
Because you have to, or because like
Only when needed lah.
only when needed?
Yeah. But yeah, the output usually like at the end result will be PowerPoint. So it's just like if I need to edit some image or whatnot, then I use Adobe, then like move it to PowerPoint.
But you come from an architectural background, right?
Yes, you're right. But architecture, like all this design always have a base of a design
graphic design, and I was a freelance graphic design before. So yeah, I use Adobe Photoshop a lot, a bit of Illustrator, but yeah.
Right. So, okay. Would you actually recommend, what would you recommend Momenta to, if they had to implement like a software solution, or like have to buy like a package, like a subscription, what would you recommend?
I guess depend though. Like there's several factors to consider, I guess. First, how many people will need to use it? Second, budget. And then third is what kind of projects that will need this, like what type of software, right? Because all this Canva, Figma, I use them too, but I mean they are free, right? And like even with the free version, I think sometimes it's sufficient already, for the type of design that we need. So it's really depending on the requirements, I guess, for the design artwork.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, and those free tools will become more powerful every year. And I think like Adobe is gonna be in a pickle if they don't change dramatically, like their approach. But ultimately, it is a tool, right? All of those softwares are tools to get certain things done. I'm a great proponent of simplicity and ease of use. So that is like where you spend less time working on your design flow. You get better results, you get them faster. And if you can share your account, or like you have a shared group account in there, you can share and collaborate on work even better. So it is a bit like of a chicken or an egg scenario, but I think like ultimately Illustrator, Photoshop to a certain extent still are still like the workhorse for the agencies, because it is the same problem as like PowerPoint. Give me a PowerPoint file. So the same thing is with Adobe, the printer that wants to have, for some reason, like those files, or the client wants to have Illustrator files, or for some crazy reason. But ultimately this will change. I think the key takeaway here is that like use the tools which gets the job done, and have enough flexibility to let you really achieve the results you want. It means like it has like your typography in there. It needs to be flexible enough so you can space your letters, your tracking, right? Space your lines correctly, have control over colors. Never mind about all of like the fancy effects which they're put into a package. Most of the time, you don't need them. Right? You just very rare cases where you really need to resolve to like those pre-packaged like filter sets and the like. But if it enables you to create a workflow where you can use the same tools and presets from previous work and apply them to a new design so you can keep consistency. If this is embedded, great. It creates a certain style set for, I imagine it's sort of like the Good Clinic for your Instagram posting. If you can create your own presets in there, and by having to create a new post, you can base this on some presets, that is fantastic. That gets your stuff done without having to restart constantly design work from A to Z every time you start it. So you can focus on contents, you can focus on the message, on the call for action. That ultimately is more important than like spending like 5 hours designing like a a post, right? Then again, everything is a learning curve. The steeper it is, the more you have to work. That is just the way it is with Adobe software, with CAD software. They're notoriously steeper than others. They're not impossible, obviously. A lot of people use them. But to become really proficient in a professional software it just takes time. You have to spend time, you have to play with it and figure out where you went wrong and what you do faster and better. And at the end, I see like a lot of people using PowerPoint for most of your Momenta works. And as Dean mentioned, like the last time, apparently there was the agency commission to come up with some new templates for you guys. I hope they get implemented nicely. And you have a lot of options where you can have, where some of the rules are implemented when it comes to composition, contrasting, etc., which makes your workflow a little bit easier instead of having to build everything from scratch, where consistency then suffers. So I'm looking forward to see your new template. And for India, obviously, if you can then customize this to suit your own local branding. And at the end, we are looking for a delivery of information which is effective, to the point, doesn't bore the person who is actually viewing it, harder thing there, and is truly engaging. And for this, we have to use some of our rules, implement them in a way like that, like it makes sense in your workflow, in your information flow. And once you gain enough practice with those rules, then you know how to break them. And that's also the fun part of it. Right? So where the balance becomes disbalance and so forth, you can drive certain informations different ways. I created this presentation deck in a square format simply because like I can. And I want to show you that like information can be presented in a different way, not just your normal horizontal kind of epic standard PPT format. It is basically there to inspire you somehow and to give you like a different option how to see things, that we can do things simpler and is equally presentable, and we don't have to resort to a standard format. You will have to stick to your horizontal layout, as your new templates will probably show you. But it doesn't mean that like you have to use all the real estate at the same time, right? You can present it in a different way. And that is what this whole exercise here was really all about. Right, so this is the final slide here. This is what is recommended in a way, like when to use it, how to use it, for what purpose to use it. Canva is, I think it's not my preferred choice, but I think it is for most businesses. It does make sense. Figma also, I think I don't know which one I would prefer, because like I don't have to use them. But PowerPoint, obviously, like you're stuck with it, no choice, unless the world becomes a different place where like Keynote becomes like the standard. And Adobe or Affinity. For me, there is like Affinity is a clear winner because it is faster. It's tremendously faster, and it is equally powerful when it comes to the tool sets in a way which you have available. But that is what I require for my daily design works for product design. I wouldn't be able to do this with Canva or Figma. So I'm a bit stuck there as well. But tools are tools to be used and to a certain purpose. And ideally is get good at it by using them, right? And applying some of the rules. So that would be all for today. And I'll leave you with that. Tom, what time is it in Tokyo?
It's nearly 6 p.m. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Mm.
And cold.
It is. For me, it's very cold. Yeah, I see most of guys from the South Asia, so I can see the differences in terms of the temperatures at this moment. Yeah.
Well, you see as well, most of them wear t-shirts over here.
Sorry?
And most of you guys wear polos or t-shirts.
Yeah. That's why.
The weather.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sitting here with like a turtleneck because it's in Germany, so it's cold.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe I'm sort of the colder sensitive person. Yeah.
You will
Anyway.
enjoy your nabe and all of that. Or then now. That's going to be good.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. For next week, try to apply some of the rules you learned today. Try to rebalance some of like the work we discussed, and I'll see you all next week.
All right.
Thank you so much, F.
Thank you so much
Thanks,
for your
F.
Thank
your
you.
time. Yeah.
All right.
Take care of your card as well. Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.